Good evening, everyone. My name is Serena Jack. I'm Vice President of the Mark One Real Estate Wealth Academy. And tonight I have the pleasure of introducing my employer for the last 7 years, Mark Prather, who is the Chief Evangelization Officer of Spirit Filled Hearts Ministry. This is a side of Mark that those of us who know and love him well don't get to see all of the time. So I'm really excited about his testimony of miracles tonight. Mark is also founder of the Mark One Real Estate Wealth Academy and Mark One Mortgage. He's author of 3 books: Why the Rich Stay Rich and the Poor Stay Poor, How Heaven Works, and Wisdom for Your Daily Life, all of which are available on Amazon, but we're not selling books tonight. In 2016, the Orange County Register voted him Most Innovative Business Leader, and he has been in the industry, the mortgage, finance, real estate industry, since 1977. He got started at the age of 18, and he's been interviewed by, as you can see here, many different news media outlets. I'm super excited for everybody that's joining us tonight to be here to hear Mark's testimony of miracles. I'm going to turn this mic over to Mark and we'll let him get started. Thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you, Serena. Let me get the clicker from you. There we go, wrong clicker. All right. Well, good evening, everyone. It's great to be here. I wish you were here with me so we could feel the love a little bit closer, but I love online. You know, the one thing I say about COVID, the one good thing that came from COVID is being able to do these online meetings. We can reach so many more people. All right, here's what we're going to talk about today is my testimony of miracles. I'm going to share with you 5 specific events that are supernatural events, but I want to just add to that. See, I believe the Holy Spirit's in our life in many, many ways. I think pretty much all of you would say that you've had so many things happen in your life. You go, was that coincidence, or is that God or the Holy Spirit? We all experience that. But the events that I'm going to share with you are big impact events, and you'll see why. Number 2 is, what can we learn, and when you move that over. Okay, what can we learn about God from these miracles? In each one of these miracles, as we walk through, I want you to pay attention to the differences and the escalation, and I'll explain when I talk about escalation, kind of the evolution of each one of these from 1 to 5, because there are significant things, and I think there are powerful lessons that we can learn from God about these, and we'll do Q&A at the end, and I'd really love to get your feedback on kind of what your thoughts and interpretations and what you learned from this about how God, because all of this, it was planned and happened for a reason. And number 3 is, why me? Now, 1, is easy for me to tell you what happened. Now, whether you believe it or not, then that's another measure. But 2 and 3, I'm going to share with you what I believe we can learn from God from this. And number 3 is what I believe, why this happened to me. So let's go ahead and move forward. All right. The most important question in life is, does God exist? That is the question that has confounded man since the beginning. This great debate has been going on since the beginning of time. And if you look at human history, and you especially look at biblical history, you'll see how mankind has moved toward God, away from God, back and forth. And today we're in a world and in our country where this country is moving away from God more than ever. Now, in my family growing up, we didn't have God in our house. Here's why. When I was born, I was baptized as an infant in the Catholic Church, but I never went to a Catholic church after that. The reason was my father was he would always poo-poo God. He would always say, I'm an agnostic. And so growing up, when I got into high school, it obviously left great questions. Is God real, or what is God? Is it so there was great doubt. What I'm going to share with you is the decision I made. It was when I was 18 years old, was to get to the truth. Recognizing that this answer to this question, does God exist or not? I mean, everything in life hinges on that. If there is a God, if God is in fact real, and he is our only hope to surviving this planet and securing eternal life, then we sure as heck better get lined up in that direction. Conversely, if there is no God, then shouldn't we do everything that's in our own best interest? Shouldn't life be about, where it's basically all about me? You know, we get this one life, we have this short window of opportunity. Shouldn't we focus on making the most of it for us? Those are the two choices. Now, most people just look at this and say, well, there's no way to prove God. You know, this question of, God, whether God is real or not, it's always been there, it's always going to be there, and then there's just no way to get to the truth. Well, I thought a lot about that, and I started going to different churches with a couple high school friends. And as I went to these different churches, hear different pastors and start getting exposed to the Bible and the preachings and that, and started listening to it. And I would tell you, here's why I was so intrigued. Is every time I heard the word Jesus Christ, I felt something inside. Now, that something inside was mostly uncomfortable. And so I would ask myself, why do I feel uncomfortable when the word Jesus Christ comes up? Or someone would say, hey, are you a Christian? Why did I feel uncomfortable? Why did that? If they asked me if I was a Muslim or anything else, Hindu or whatever, I'd say no. And there would be no discomfort. We didn't go to church. I didn't have a commitment to any faith. So it just seemed bizarre to me that when someone would ask me or say something about the name Jesus or would ask that question as a Christian, that I felt uncomfortable. Why did I feel uncomfortable? That didn't make any sense to me. So I started going to church and I started exploring. And then I said, how can I get to the bottom of it? So I said, the obvious place is to start researching the Bible. But the truth was, I was very much a doubting Thomas. And I think most of us are. I think it's reasonable to have doubt. I think it's reasonable to be skeptical. So as I started picking up the Bible, I go to these different services and hear the pastors preaching, start looking in the Bible and start just looking for research, trying to see how can I get to the answer of this, like, just critically important question of does God exist? And I found these are a couple of the scriptures that I found. Number one, you can see on here, the first one is Deuteronomy 4:28. And when you will seek the Lord your God, in that place you will find him. If you only seek him with all your heart and in all the tribulation of your soul. Now this really struck me because it says you will find him. That is not vague. That is very specific. It's not saying maybe you'll find him or maybe you'll get a feeling for him. No, it's being very specific here. And then Matthew 7:7, ask and it shall be given to you. Seek and you will find. And knock it shall be opened unto you. Now, this really resonated with me when I was young. Because now imagine I'm 18 years old, I'm reading this, and I'm starting my adult journey. I moved out of my parents' house when I was 18. I was just starting my life. And I wanted to be something. I wanted to accomplish something. I wanted to have a good life. Now, my family, on both sides, we were at the bottom of, if you look at the three income categories, we were more in the bottom third, and my father was struggling to get to the middle. We were not there was not a lot of education in our family. And so I really, and my point in bringing those points up is I had a lot of doubt about myself and about where my life could go. Because I didn't know anybody rich. I didn't know anybody super successful. And so the obvious question is, if no one in my family is rich, no one in my family is well educated, no one in my family or friends are very successful, then how am I supposed to believe that I'm going to be successful? And then I saw it said, ask, and it should be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Well, these are the things that I want. And I said, I'm starting from zero. I don't know anything. I have no money. And I don't know anybody that has any of those things either. And I thought, I can tie my journey into trying to build my life and look at whether God and these promises of seek and you will find. Again, it's very specific. And all through the Bible, New and Old Testament, there are outrageous claims that are made. And as I look at these claims, I say, I'm going to challenge these claims. And for those of you that know me, know that when I commit to doing something, I get after it. I get after it with everything I have, and there is no stopping or denying. I mean, I like to say I'm the king of failure, man, because I have learned you will eventually get there if you just don't give up. And that was what I decided. I was not going to give up. If it took me to my deathbed at 100 years old to prove that God did not exist because that scripture I just shared with you was a lie, then I could die at peace. I did not want to die. I did not want to be on my deathbed wondering, God, I wonder if God really exists or not. I wanted absolute certainty, and I was committed to getting to that absolute certainty. So I started this journey. So where do we seek God? And I tell you a word that I've learned to replace seek. Seek is about chasing. It's about pursuing, right? But seeking is also about work, hard work. And that's really the root, is that most of us don't like to work hard. But we're seeking God, and it's through our fears. The Bible references fear over 400 times? Either fear or afraid, over and over and over. We hear about having faith. It's about faith to get through our fears. And he says, do not fear, for I am with you. Do not anxiously look about you, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. Surely I will help you, and surely I will help you with my righteous right hand. Isaiah 41:10. Now I want you to think about how many times in your life has fear stopped you? See, I would not let fear stop me. I was committed to pushing through every fear. And here's why. See, if I refuse to let any fear, and I mean any fear, stop me, then I was giving up on my pursuit to get to the truth about God and Jesus Christ. And that wasn't going to happen. Now, pressing the envelope on my fears as hard and as far as I could. Now, here's what I mean by that when I say that. I started my own company at 22 years old. I didn't have the money really to do that. I was not ready. I'd never managed anything. Over and over and over, I pressed the envelope and put myself in places that I was not trained for, I was not educated for, I was not ready for. But why? Because I was pressing the envelope on faith as far as well. Because I was on this bigger mission to prove one way or another either God was going to show up or he wasn't. Now we're going to get into these miracles, but again, I want you to pay attention to the differences as we go along and observe those differences and the escalation of what God reveals to us with each one of these miracles. Okay, here's miracle number one. It was a Saturday morning where I got up about 5 o'clock in the morning to go play golf to tee off at 5:30 in the morning. Now, the night before, my wife and I had gone out with friends, and we were out till about 1:30, got back about 2 a.m. So I got about 3.5 hours of sleep. Got up, teed off 5:30, played my 4-hour round of golf, Got home about 9:45ish. And my wife says, I got to go shopping, got to do the grocery. I'll be back in 2 hours. I said, okay. She says, watch the boys. Now, at this point, we have 4 adult children today. This happened when I was 28 years old. We had a 3-year-old and a 17, 18-month child. So my wife leaves to go shopping. Sitting in our family room. As I'm sitting in the family room, I put on the TV's on with cartoons. The boys are playing with their toys, watching the cartoons. And as I'm sitting on our couch, the sleepiness and the fatigue starts to catch up with me. And I'm like, I cannot hold my head up. I cannot hold my eyes open. And I look and I say, I got to rest. So I get up, I make sure everything's all locked up. Our family room's locked up. I go to the master bedroom, which is upstairs. Go up the stairs. I lay down. I said, okay, you cannot go to sleep because you need to hear if anything's going on with the kids. So I laid there and I closed my eyes and I'm resting there. I'm not asleep, but I'm not really awake either. I'm kind of in that twilight space. And how what I've learned is how you're in that space is time goes way faster than you think. You think you've been laying there for 3 or 4 or 5 minutes, and it's actually 15, 20 minutes. Anyway, I'm laying there, and it seemed like I was there for 3 or 4 minutes. And all of a sudden, I hear the sound of running water. Now, water is a very distinct sound. If you're imagine turning on your faucet in your bathroom or your kitchen or what have you, or maybe a running toilet, the sound of water. Faucet's on, it's water. And that's what I heard, is the sound of like the faucet being on. And I remember thinking as I laid there going, you know what, it's just the faucet. It's just going to go down the drain. Just ignore it. That was my first thought. A few seconds later, I get this next thought and said, what if the faucet and in the sink, the drain is closed? Then what's going to happen? Sink's going to fill up, it's going to overflow, it's going to go all over the floor in the bathroom. So in our master bedroom, there was a master bath behind a wall with 2 different sinks in the vanity area in that. So I said, okay, well, I can't have that, so I have to get up. So I get up. I walk from the bedroom to the master bedroom, and I see the 2 sinks, and neither one is on. And they're bone dry. Well, there's another room off of that, which is the toilet area. The toilet and the shower in a separate room. And that door is closed. And I hear the sound of the water running. I say, okay, well, it wasn't those faucets, so it's clearly got to be the toilet. So I open up the door, and I step into the bathroom where the toilet is. And there's the toilet, and the toilet's water's not running. But I still hear the water sound. So, well, now there's only one possibility. It's got to be the shower. The shower curtain is closed. So I walk over, I grab the shower curtain, and I pull it back. Now, the shower curtain's got the little rings, and it's got a little steel bar that goes across. And when I pull it, you can hear the scraping of the steel as it pulls along there. And I hear this, the water sound still going. And as I pull it, you hear it scrape, and the water sound stopped immediately. And I look down, and the water is not running. The shower was not on. There was no water, and the sound shut off. And I just thought, okay, that's really bizarre. And I said, where could this water? And then this horrible thought entered my mind, is the pool. We had a pool in our backyard. So I ran to the window, I looked out the window, and what had happened is our youngest son, who's now 6'7" and change, was really tall, really long arm, and he was able to reach higher than I thought and was able to unlock the lock on that sliding door. And he and his little brother were walking down the steps of the pool, and the water was around between their knees and their waist at that point. And so I opened the window and yelled at them to stop, and then I took off and ran down the stairs. Now, I want you to think about that experience. There was no water, and what we learned from that, and but I heard the water. One of the things that I've taken from that is that not only is God with us at all times, is He is within us. Because there was no water sound, but I heard it coming inside my head, in my ears. It wasn't in my brain, it was in my ears. And then the obvious question is, in this case, He saved my children's lives. And we always ask, why does God not save everyone's? And I'm going to share with you my perspective on that on the end. All right, miracle number 2. That happened when I was 28. Now, there were all kinds of little things I could share with you, but here's the most profound thing that happened next is when I was 49. As I said in the beginning, I was pressing the envelope on my life as far and as hard as I could, perpetually staying beyond what I really felt like I was ready to deal with. And here's what came with that: stress. I was perpetually stressed out. My 20s, 30s, 40s, and it finally caught up to me. It was Monday morning. We had just returned from a family vacation visiting our son in New York City. And I got up in the morning, went to the gym, did my workout, came home from the gym, took my shower. I'm getting dressed for work. It's about 7:30 in the morning, and I feel this slight burn in my chest. And that slight burn, this is really weird. So I asked my wife to call the hospital or to call the doctor and say, hey, what are the symptoms? Is this a symptom? Because I never heard that being a symptom of a heart attack. As she was on the phone with the doctor's office, they said, hey, if you think there's any chance, you need to call 911. And right about that moment is when it went from the slight burn to this massive, massive, like chest cramp, and the pressure and the pain in my chest was immense. And I told her, I said, hey, this is absolutely a heart attack. Call 911. And she called them. They were there really quickly. I laid down because this happened where I was standing next to our bed. I laid down on the bed, and I was in massive pain. The paramedics come in. They do a quick blood check. They check the enzymes in your blood, and if your enzymes are off the chart, then they know you're in the middle of a heart attack. And I remember that paramedic kneeling on the bed over me, says, hey, bud, you're definitely having a heart attack. Where do you want to go? I said, let's go to St. Joseph's. They pick me up. They strap me on this chair because our staircase is spiral, so you can't carry a gurney up that. But as they're carrying me down out of the room, and they put me on morphine, and I passed out. But right before I passed out, I started praying, and I said, not yet, Lord. And then I passed out. Now, next, I woke up in ICU, with doctors all around me, and they were trying to do an angioplasty to pop open the artery that had clogged. One of the main arteries at the base of my heart had clogged. They tried 3 different times for a couple hours each time, and they were unable to get to that clog. And it caused massive heart damage. 75% of my heart had shut down. I knew how I got there. When I was in ICU, I was so weak because your heart provides, or I should say, your heart pumps the blood provides the oxygen. And if your heart is not pumping very well, you're not getting very much oxygen. I was so weak I couldn't pick up a fork to feed myself. But my brain worked real well, and as I laid there in intensive care, I knew how I got there. It was from this relentless pursuit of chasing worldly things and pushing myself to the absolute limit. But my heart was so damaged, I could barely walk across the room. They said, Mark, look, your ejection fraction is down to 10 to 15. You can't function at that level. You need to be at least 25 to live any kind of life. Because you're so young, at 49, we're going to put you on the heart transplant list. And so they signed me up at Cedars-Sinai. And that's when I felt like I was like a hostage in my own body. I couldn't do anything. And so months went by, and I couldn't function. And after about 4 or 5 months, I went in for another checkup, and they did the echocardiogram, which kind of measures your heart, and they scan your heart and all that. And I went home, and a couple days later, my cell phone rings, and I answered the phone, and it's this nurse, and she says, "This Mr. Prather?" I said, "Yes, it is." She said, "This is the nurse from," this was at St. Jude's Hospital. "So we have your test results." I said, "Okay, good. What are they?" She says, "Well, the doctor asked me not to tell you." Now, I immediately thought, "Oh, this is bad news." She said, "He'd like to tell you." So she gets him on the phone. He gets on the phone, and he said, "Mark," he says, "I never get to make this call." He said, "I wanted to tell you directly." He said, "Your heart is healed. It is fully recovered." I said, "Well, what?" I said, "That sounds pretty good. What does that mean?" He goes, "That means you can resume your life, because I couldn't go to elevation. I couldn't go to Mammoth. I couldn't get on a plane." He said, "You can resume your life." Now that is, I mean, he couldn't explain it. I mean, that is an extreme miracle. But here's where, to me, it even got better. I said, "We're going to take my dream vacation, which was to do a Mediterranean cruise." So my wife and I booked this cruise on the Queen Victoria, starting from Venice and going all the way around Italy, over to Spain, Barcelona. As we're on this cruise, and you've been on these cruise ships, this boat was pretty big, held about 2,000 people. They have the big buffet. So I get up pretty early, go get breakfast, and there's all these people there. So I go in by myself. I get my little breakfast set up. I get a table. Well, there was actually really no table there. People were everywhere. But I found a seat. I sat down. There was one chair left, and this little gal comes walking up, and she says, "Sir, do you mind if I use this chair and join you?" I said, "No." So she sits down. So I strike up a conversation, and I say, well, "What do you do?" She says, "I'm a cardiologist." Now, I don't know what the odds of me sitting next to a cardiologist at that point out of 2,000 people are, but they're long odds. So I laughed. I said, "I'm a heart expert." And so she looks, she goes, "Really, are you a cardiologist?" I said, "No, but let me tell you what I've been through." And I told her my story that I just told you. And she looked at me and she goes, "Sir," she goes, "I've been a cardiologist for 25 years. Not only have I never heard of that happening, not only have I never seen that happen, I've never heard of that happening." And to me, that was like a powerful exclamation point from God, just saying, just in case you weren't crystal clear, that I was the one that healed your heart. I was the one. But here was the next big challenge, is going back to work. See, I knew how I got to that place of damage, and what I never realized is how damaging stress is to your life. Because I always ate well, I always worked out, all of those things, but I was perpetually stressed out. And I knew if I had returned to the same life, I would be stressed out again. And so I was petrified to go back to work, to go back being a business owner. When you're a business owner, it's your money. It's, you're responsible for everything. I was afraid of all of those things. And I was in a good place financially. And many people said, "Hey, Mark, close the company, sell the company, do anything, but don't go back to what you did, because you don't need to do that." And I thought a lot about it, and I prayed a lot about it. And here's what occurred to me, is only one person knew how afraid I was, and that was God. Nobody else knew. I knew, and I knew God knew. And then here's what occurred to me, is there was an epic opportunity. In my quest to prove that God was real, this was the moment. Because I was confronting my own demise, my own death. Because I absolutely believed that if I went back to work trying to run the ship of this business, that my life was on the line. I mean, I truly believed that. But I made the decision. I said, "You know what? I said a long time ago that if it takes me dying to prove whether God is real or not, I'm willing to die." And now I was confronting that reality. And I said, yeah, I'm going to go for it. And I said, God, look, I'm going to keep pushing forward through this fear. And either you're going to show up or you're not. But either way, I'm going to get to the truth of whether you're real or not. And so I resumed my life and started back with running the business. But things started to change. And God started showing up. And one of the things that I began is praying for wisdom. And I remember at night praying and saying, Lord, I don't know what to do. I just don't understand this world. I don't understand this life. And I need to understand. So I'm praying for wisdom. Now, the things that have been revealed to me are a whole other conversation. And we'll talk about that another time if you're interested. But some of the things that started coming to me were pretty profound. But I started reading a lot. And the brightest, in my opinion, and I think of many, Thomas Aquinas is the brightest man that's gone through the Catholic faith. This guy is kind of like the Socrates and Plato and Aristotle all rolled into one. I mean, I started reading his books. And he has a book called the Summa Theologia, which is one of the most complex and heavy reads ever. But in his book, he has a section, as I started reading and I got to the section called The Proofs of God. And he breaks down these different scenarios of how you can prove God's existence. Well, every night, here was my routine. At 9 o'clock, I'd get my iPad, and I had the Kindle app, and that's when the book was on, and I just kept reading every night from like 9 to 9:30, 9:45, and I just kept reading and reading. And that's when I got to this. And I came to this section, and it's called The Law of Alignment. That was the title of this section in the book. And I started reading it, and here's what it started to explain, is that everything that functions, whether it's mechanical, biological, physiological, or has to do with nature, has an alignment. And if you look at the world, like our ocean and our currents, and oxygen has an alignment, a system. You look at the way the earth and the moon and the sun are aligned, everything has this alignment. And all our ecosystems, and it went into great detail, and I spent 20, 30 minutes reading about how all these alignments work. And then what it said is, bottom line is you cannot have perfect random alignment. To have that happen once is impossible. But to have perpetual, random, perfect realignment, which, like oxygen, for example, this planet generates 21% of the atmosphere has to be oxygen. If it's more than that, people die. If it's less than that, people die. Every day, the world, the earth, generates 21% of the atmosphere in perfect oxygen, like a machine, like it's been programmed. And it said, everything, the law of alignment is that for anything to function in alignment, you must have an align or God. Now, when I finished reading that, I thought, that's the best argument, scientific argument for God I've ever heard. Now, I bookmarked my Kindle, closed it up, went to sleep. Next day, I couldn't stop thinking about that. What a compelling argument that was. Got back from work, immediately got my Kindle, opened it up, went to the bookmark page, and it didn't say law of alignment. So that's not one of Aquinas' 5 proofs of God. So I thought, well, maybe I bookmarked it in the wrong spot or something. So I went page, I went 20, 30 pages forward, didn't see it. Went back to where I started, went 20, 30 pages back, there, didn't see it. Then I thought, I know, what's great about Kindle is you can do a word search. So I typed in the law of alignment. Law of alignment's not in there. I Googled the law of alignment. Everything I read, I couldn't find it anywhere. And here's what I learned. Much like when I heard the water, is God's inside of us. And what I saw was not in that book. As I saw I don't know, 3, 4, 5 pages, something like that, that I read. But it was inside, I guess, the cornea of my eye. Now, miracle number 4. This happened not very long ago. The one I just shared with you was probably about 2 or 3 years after the heart attack. When I was in my early 30s, and I played football growing up, and I was in a pickup football game in my early 30s, and I injured my lower back, the last disc in my lower back. Now, if you've had back problems, you know what I'm talking about. Back problems are really debilitating. And the back problems I had got progressively worse. And as they got worse, I couldn't bend over like to wash my face or to shave or to brush my teeth. I would have to kind of kneel and put my knees against the cabinet. And I couldn't run. I couldn't jump. I mean, any kind of active sports. If I played golf, I couldn't play 2 days in a row. So I would work out, but there could be no impact. And this is the way it had been since I was about 32, 33 years old. And it just got progressively worse. And then about a year ago, I decided, I said, I've been working 60 hours a week since I was 18, that it's time to start to throttle back a little bit. And I joined this private country club. And so every Friday about 12 o'clock, head over to the golf course, play a round of golf, and go home. After about the 4th or 5th week, my back couldn't handle the pain anymore. I mean, it just started getting more inflamed and more inflamed. And it was a Thursday night. And I had a round of golf scheduled for the next day with an old high school friend I hadn't seen for years. And I was in massive pain, and I'm thinking, I need to cancel. And I thought, no, I don't want to cancel. I said, I'll go and I'll tough out this round. But I knew what was going to happen after that. I was going to have a hard time getting out of bed for the next week. Well, as I laid there, I started getting depressed, saying, if I can't even play golf once a week, what's the point of being a part of this club? I might as well cancel. It's not worth the money. So I started to pray. And I had made a decision, and I had communicated this in my prayers a couple years prior. And I said, Lord, I'm not going to ask for anything. I'm only going to give thanks. And if I ask, it'll be for forgiveness and just give thanks for the life that I have. And any grace you want to bring my way, I'm all for. But I made the decision to not ask. Well, that night I said, Lord, I know what I said before, but I changed my mind. And I took these 2 fingers and I put them on my back where it was in pain. And I said, Lord, I'm asking you. I do not want to drop out of this club. I'm asking you. I said, I know you can heal my back if you want to. So I'm asking you to want to. And I closed my prayer and I went to sleep. Now the next morning, Friday morning, I woke up, no pain. Now that didn't convince me that it was healed, but I was excited that I had no pain and I was going to be able to go play golf that day. And I went with that friend of mine and we played golf and I had no problems. And I thought, okay, well, let's see how Saturday goes. No pain. Sunday, no pain. And my back felt a level of stability, and the disc no longer felt paper thin, that any little impact was painful. Well, the next Friday, my round of golf came up, and I was going to go play golf with my son. We get out there, and this is at an Alta Vista golf course. The number 1 hole is a par 5. We hit our drives. We're out in the fairway. So we're in the middle of the fairway out there, about where we have plenty of room for the next shot. And I told my son, I gave him my phone. I said, I want you to film this. I'm going to try to run. Now, I have not run in like 27 years. And I said, I'm going to get in a 3-point stance. You say ready, set, go. And as I'm going down to get in this 3-point stance, I said, Lord, I'm going to give this my best effort, but I have not run in 27 years. Because I couldn't. The pain, it felt like someone was stabbing me in my back. I said, but I got to get to the truth. I have to know, is my back healed or not healed? So my son says, ready, set, he's laughing, go. And I take off. And if you've seen this video, because I put it on Facebook, I was running about half speed, but there was no pain. So I went to 3/4 speed, and I ran about a 40 or 50-yard sprint the last quarter full speed. Since then, there's been no pain. And now I can run, I can jump, I can do a lot of things. All right, miracle number 5, and I saved the most extreme for last for a reason. Now, if you don't think I'm nuts already, you're really going to think I'm nuts when you hear this one. And one thing I've learned is that's okay. I've shared some of these stories with a few people, believers and non-believers, and I always get the same look, like I'm nuts. Here's what happened. One of the guys in our company invited me to go to his church up in Inglewood at Faith Crusade Christian Church. He said, hey, why don't you come to my church? I said, sure, just tell me when. So we went out. So I would, so I'll meet you up there. So their service was going to start. I think it was either 10 or 10:30. So I drove up to Inglewood, parked, went to the church, and had a fantastic service. They have a pretty incredible pastor there, and so as he was finishing his sermon, everybody started to stand up, and there was this transition from him as the pastor to the bishop of the church. And as we're standing there, and I'm in the second row, all of a sudden, I hear a man standing right next to me. And I want to be clear. I hear this in my ears, not in my brain. This was not a thought. I hear a man stand next to me, and he said just 3 words. He said, fill my church. Now, at that moment, when I was standing there, what happened is I had this shot of adrenaline run through my body, which was very similar to like someone saying boo, or you get scared and you have that shot of adrenaline. And it made me keenly aware, just kind of, my senses were heightened because of that shot of adrenaline. And that's when I heard those 3 words. I heard this man, fill my church. And I turned to look. There's no man standing there. There's a woman standing there. The woman that was sitting next to me standing there. I knew who that was. That was the voice of Jesus Christ. And that's why I'm doing this tonight. See, he didn't say fill this church. Now, immediately afterwards, I went and talked to the bishop, and I told them exactly what happened. And I said, I'm here. I think I'm supposed to help you fill this church. And we had a couple meetings, and we developed a marketing plan and so on. But after I left there, it occurred to me that he didn't say fill this church. He said fill my church. And faith in this country has diminished dramatically. And that's why I'm doing this tonight. He asked me, this is my gift for everything all the blessings of my life, because my life's been nothing short of miracle after miracle. Now, what changed with each of these miracles? Here's what the big changes were, and if you think of the escalation, is my faith and trust. And if you replace faith with the word trust, my trust in God just kept growing and growing and growing. And as my faith grew, my trust grew, his love became more and more overt. See, in the beginning, he was hiding. I couldn't see him, I couldn't hear him. There were different things, but he was guiding and saving my kids' lives and doing these things. But as we got later in the process, the revelation in Aquinas' book, I knew that could only be one person. And then hearing the voice. And I don't know how many people have heard the voice of Jesus Christ, but it's in Scripture. But I'm one of them. So our faith in God is revealed when we advance our lives through our fears. Faith is like a muscle. There are no shortcuts to building faith. And I'll tell you the other part. There's not only no shortcuts, there's no faking it. God knows where your faith is. You can't fake it. The journey that I went through, I think where my journey is unique is my commitment to getting to the truth And I was willing to do anything to get to that truth, including die. And I made the choice to go back to work to risk dying. I made another choice. They put me on lifelong meds, heart meds. I said, no, I'm not going to do that. I gave up the heart meds probably 5 years ago. I said, Lord, I'm going to show you. You want me on this planet to do whatever, do your work, to support whatever you want me to do on this planet, you're going to have to keep me here. So I gave up the meds. When COVID came around, I didn't miss a day of work. Here's why. In the same way that heart damage and that fear to go back to work was an opportunity to show my faith, so was giving up those meds. So was COVID. I said, Lord, you want to keep me on this planet? You're going to have to do the work to keep me here because I'm not doing it. I'm going to keep moving forward. Very few people are willing to lose their life for their faith. See, faith and fear cannot coexist. You of little faith, Jesus replied, why are you so afraid? Then he got up and rebuked the winds and the sea, and it was perfectly calm. Here's the other thing I've learned about my journey. I mean, the truth of the matter is we just, we don't really understand this world. We don't really understand our lives. We think it's all about us. It's not what it's about. We must make the choice to love God or reject God. That is the first big choice. But our obsession, our self-obsession, we are obsessed with us, must come to an end. We must be willing to literally lose our life. And that is a personal resurrection. See, who we are as people, this is the way we all are. We are selfish people. And the world's a mess because of it. But that selfishness will not stand in the kingdom. But to lose your life is a pretty tall order. See, people complain because they want earth to be heaven, but earth is not heaven. Earth is simply our journey to learn some painful lessons, and the biggest one being that we cannot make it without God. Now I asked my question, why did God save my children? Here's why I believe he saved my children that day. Because if my kids had died, or if they had drowned, they wouldn't have died. They would have gone straight to heaven. They were going to have eternal life. You know who he saved that day? He saved me. Because had my kids drowned, I could not have lived with that. There is no doubt in my mind I would have taken a gun and blown my brains out. He saved my life. He saved my soul. See, what is the definition of love? Because we all talk about that. Love is to sacrifice. And this is the great battle. Self-obsession versus self-sacrifice. That's what our journey is really about. But reaching absolute certainty, I've reached this place of absolute certainty. See, with God, all things are possible. What I know to be true through my own personal experiences, I know many people will reject. Certainly any non-believer, and even a lot of the believers look at me super skeptical. And that's okay. I understand. Because here's the truth of it, is God's power is just beyond our comprehension. I mean, how do you comprehend being able to raise people from the dead? How do you comprehend being able to create the sun or the moon or the stars? We can't, I mean, if you were to take all the superheroes and all of Harry Potter and put them all into one, and they wouldn't be anywhere near God's power. It's just not really rational for us to be able to comprehend that level of power. You see, I say, finding God is not for wimps. You can find God. But what I've learned about God is the bar of faith is really high. And here's why it's so high. It is the only measure of us demonstrating our love for God and our willingness to sacrifice ourselves to complete surrender and through complete resurrection. It is a really high bar. But here's my personal guarantee to you. God and Jesus Christ are absolutely real. And it's not even a maybe. I can absolutely guarantee you that they are real. And if you have any doubt, do not doubt. Start pushing yourself through your fears. And you will see amazing things happen over and over and over. And I'll close with this. This is my favorite verse in the Bible. According to your faith, be it unto you. And here's what it says. According to what you believe will come to pass. Matthew 9:29. All right, that concludes my presentation and basically sharing my testimony with you. If there's any of you have any questions and you want to go on the chat box right now, I'd be happy to answer any questions. We can't do voice, right? We just have to do it.
Yeah, just do it.
Just yeah. So if any of you have any questions, you can type them in there. But I want to express my gratitude. Hey, Steve, why don't you come on up real quick, okay? I want to introduce you to my good friend. This is Mr. Steve Greco. We'll give Steve here a moment to get up. By the way, we're at our training center here, our Mark I Wealth Academy Training Center here. But this is Mr. Steve Greco, Deacon Steve, and he is the founder of Spirit-Filled Hearts Ministry. And so,
well, it's wonderful to be here, and I was so moved by your personal testimony. And God is real, Jesus is real, and he wants you to say yes to him, and then everything changes. So great job.
All right, thank
you. Really
Steve.
great job. Thank you.
Okay. All right, is there any questions or anything?
Let's have another look. This is from Matthew Rice. He said, thank you so much for sharing.
Okay. Awesome. You're welcome, Matthew. All right, well, if any of you want to talk to me or reach out, just shoot me an email. My email is mprather@m1m.com. So if any of you want to, like I said, have any questions or talk about any of this, just reach out at any time. And I will just close by saying, God bless you. Having the certainty that God, I'm going to tell you, there's some baggage that comes with it. It is a beautiful thing because when you have that certainty, your fears are gone. Most people, I'm telling you the things that they don't believe it's possible to prove God's existence. Because of that, they don't believe it's possible to 100% eradicate your fears. That is not true. Once you have the absolute certainty that God and Jesus Christ are absolutely 100% real, and the kingdom is 100% real, and you are on target to get there, that is an amazing thing. There is nothing to fear. That this planet we're just passing through. But it's a tough journey. It's a really tough journey because it's about learning to lose your life. That's what it's really about. And that is really difficult to do. But I'm going to tell you the baggage that comes with it. When I say baggage, the hard part. When you have absolute certainty, is the people you encounter that are rejectors, they're choosing death. And that is really a sad thing. Jesus has a verse where he says, let the dead bury the dead. See, God knows who have rejected him. And they're in that category. They are walking dead people. It's like that movie, Dead Man Walking. All the rejectors are dead men walking. They've made their call. God knows they've made their call. And he lets them live their time out and they'll die. What evangelization is about and why I'm doing this is there's three buckets in life. There are the people that have rejected, the dead men walking. There are the believers that are on their way. But there's a big chunk in the middle that are doubters, that are questioning, that are on that bubble. And I hope today in this presentation, and if you have friends that are on that bubble, that you'll share this with them. Because they got to make that hard choice. Anyway, we'll close up. God bless all of you.
Do you want to answer that?
Sure. Yeah. Can you hear me, Catherine? Or
Yeah.
I am not a pastor and I'm not a theologian, but I will tell you, is when, oh, Oh, go ahead and answer it then, okay. Is there anything else there?
No.
Okay.